All right, The Last of Us 2 trailer has now received 200,000 downvotes, and I wanted to just say a few words about what's going on with that from a more philosophical perspective on a higher level. I mean, I'll try to not have too many spoilers, but I might reference a few things here and there. So basically, it's this game coming out, The Last of Us 2, and there's a massive scandal around this game, at least from what's been seen, because basically there's been leaks about what it's about to be about, which show, let's just say, spoilers incoming. Here we go. Warning, warning. Basically, the beloved characters from the first game, okay, being beat up and killed by a golf club, by a transgender woman, that now becomes the main character and the hero of the second part 2, right? I mean, this game got like 200, I mean, not this game, but this trailer, and more than the trailer, the leaks, right? The trailer didn't have this, right? None of that was released in the trailer. But the leaks from like a disgruntled employee have dropped all these clips and like cutscene from the full game. And people watched the leaks, and then they went and they downvoted the trailer for that reason. And like the game has been dropped by like a lot of publishers. Here's what I want to say about that. Why did they do it? Right? Like, why did they subvert expectations? Why did they try to create such a disturbing narrative? I think it goes back to the Game of Thrones, right? The Game of Thrones season 8 had a similar sort of twist. Well, really the whole Game of Thrones. What was that TV series known for? It was known for highly subversive, disturbing, very sort of jarring footage of like torture and like unnecessary nudity and like a lot of things that you just didn't used to watch on TV, and now you do. And the Game of Thrones pioneered that, right? So the question is, why were so many people upset about the sort of the way Game of Thrones ended? Because it ended with a very subversive way, with like the main sort of hero of the show being a nobody, and all the heroes that people loved, first of all, being killed in the first half of the show, the first 4 years of it, 3 years of it, where all the buildup from all the main characters led up to nothing because the main characters were killed in like a massacre episode. And then basically the next 3-4 years of buildup produced new favorite characters, and none of them became heroic in the end. Sort of in the last season, especially the last few episodes of Game of Thrones, none of the characters that you loved, that you followed, became the sort of the winners of the show. They all like were nobodies and losers in the end. They sort of had a very disappointing, if not becoming villains themselves, kind of end, right? And basically it completely blew up the web back when that show was released, because people were like, well, why can't our hero, like, why didn't the people we loved win, right? My response was the same. If you go back, I have a few videos about that, right? My response back then was, look, you selected and you voted and you watched a show that was made to be disturbing, right? Like it was made to be disturbing and subversive and like neurosis producing, anxiety inducing. That's what Game of Thrones was and was intended to be, right? So like, you don't just cheer the main character being like suddenly like the beloved, the main character in the first season be killed with his head chopped off. You don't just cheer that like, ooh, how edgy, and then expect things to go well by the end. It's gonna just go bad from then on. Like your favorite characters, your heroes will just continue to be killed and raped and like destroyed and all kinds of stuff. And the main lady is gonna have like nudity like shown over and over and over, such that after the show ends, nobody wants to see her in like a heroic role, because we're like used to seeing her in a demeaning role. Like the actress is basically dead. Like now, years later, no one's gonna hire that actress. She's dead. Like it's a tragedy, right? All because she was willing to do nudity so much that that it undercut her character. So we the audience kept like clamoring for more of these kinds of things that are disturbing and that are subversive, and we expect things to go well somehow in the end. The show did not end well, and we should have been expecting that. Now, the same thing I think applies to Game of Thrones, i.e. The Last of Us, because what is that game? It's basically it's a horror movie game, right? It's all about survival. It's about like, it's really a horror game, right? It's all about like, if you're asking yourself for a happy ending in a horror game, you're making a mistake. Like it's gonna be disturbing and highly like awful, like on purpose. Which is, I think, a major problem, that like that's become normalized for that genre to become a thing, like to watch horror movies with like your family on a Friday night. Like, don't do that, and I don't do that. Like playing horror games is just inviting horror into your life. Like, who needs more horror? Like, why would you even play that? And so, you know, them adding highly subversive content like that, I mean, like, you know, like the image of like this trans woman like taking a golf club and just like smashing the face of the main character from the first episode. I mean, why are people upset about that? Why are you upset? You're playing a horror game. You're going to be horrified by design. I mean, I think you've brought it on yourself. I think people that play horror games in general should expect to be demoralized and be depressed from the stuff they play, right? I think the answer is not, well, this is what people have been doing, which is basically boycotting and trying to downvote the trailer, 200,000 downvotes. The answer is not to play these games. Don't play horror games. You know, horror games, horror movies, Game of Thrones, The Last of Us. You know, just like some good old-fashioned story with a happy ending and good characters is not too old-fashioned. And I think by normalizing horror, we've brought horror into our lives. And I think really it's our fault, and I think it's your fault and my fault. And the answer is less horror, not a horror with a happy ending.